is to keep my readership numbers down. Now, you'd like to have my listeners, but when I do conspiracy things, and we stop to a large extent, I work on intelligence issues that are over most people's head, not everybody's, but most. So I don't have Fox News people who want the next round of idiocy, because I can report more entertaining idiocy than Clear Channel Radio. You know who owns that?
Bain Capital, Mitt Romney, and the Mossad dual citizens run it. Now,
yeah.
let me just ask you on that for a moment. Dual citizen, if somebody owes loyalty to a foreign country that was stocked and staffed by KGB and by the Rothschild, by the English, by MI6, I would assume. I mean, all of these.
You pretty much have that right. Yeah. And the issue, of course, is it has nothing to do with being Jewish. It has to do with Israel being a safe haven from extradition, a safe haven for organized crime.
A safe country. A safe country for criminals.
Yeah. And that nice people live there. I mean, the problem I have is that the Palestinians are not when you own every television in the world, and you do, and you control everything that's on every television, and you do nothing but talk about Palestinians as being terrorists. Yet at the same time, you lock people up in a concentration camp. Even the Germans didn't bomb concentration camps, but the Israelis do. They lock people up and bomb them, and when they complain about it, they're terrorists.
Aren't we getting to that stage right now with the NDAA, with laws? I mean, I said they sent our troops over to Iraq to train them for coming back and taking our guns here. Is that being paranoid, or is that what's happening?
Homeland Security was put together to take guns away from Americans, yes.
Yeah, the Homeland Security is nothing more than KGB. I interviewed.
You know who is helping keep track of the gun owners in the United States?
I would say.
Who's working for the enemy? Who the enemy is? It's the National Rifle Association.
National Rifle Association, yes.
The National Rifle Association is a government snitch operation. Welcome to that world. And keeps a record of, they recruit people who are activist gun owners. Make sure they know what guns they own, where they are, where they can be found. And the NRA, what it is? It's a pack of Washington lawyers. That's all it is. You think it's a bunch of good old boys? Like, you go down to the NRA headquarters in Washington, and you see how many Clay Shaws are down there. What you'll find is ex-congressmen. You'll find a lot of lawyers, a lot of ex-FBI people, but you won't like what you find.
Well, I have Larry Pratt from Gun Owners of America, and he's the only one out there that I trust. NRA, they wouldn't report on Ron Paul. Let me ask you about that. Let me ask you about the whole Ron Paul situation, Rand and Ron Paul. I mean, why isn't Ron Paul just simply stepping out as an independent? Is he just another politician that they allowed to say all the things that we wanted to hear?
You see, Ron and I have one good friend in common. One of my friends was the Senate intelligence briefer, and he used to eat lunch with Ron Paul all the time. This is years ago. And Gordon Paul wants you to come down, and he wants to run for president. He wants you to help him, because I do political stuff. I'm not bad at it. And Paul wanted to meet me, and he's got beliefs just like you, Gordon. The same sort of stuff. Now, I love to hear Ron Paul, but Ron Paul is a doctor. He's an elitist. And what he didn't have guts to do was to stand up to the Republican Party, which is a pack of crooks, and tell them the whole thing's a racket, and he's not taking part in it. He's going to set up a third party. Now, he had to do that 2 years ago. Instead, he borrowed as much money as possible, organized as many people as possible, and then sold them all out. And his son is a worthless fascist. If I had a kid like that, I would have put a pillow over his face at birth. Which, by the way, we have proof that 2 other national leaders actually murdered their own children, and are being blackmailed for it by Rupert Murdoch. But that's another story.
Well, now let me ask you something here. You have been on all of these upper levels. You've worked with the CIA. You've worked with, you know about Homeland Security. You got the diplomatic passports. Why isn't the FBI or the CIA or any of the intelligence or agencies that are still active at the Pentagon, why aren't they taking these banksters out? Why aren't they standing up for the American people? They are making us into criminals. We have more Americans in jail right now.
You want the absolute pure truth?
Yes, sir.
Because gun owners vote for the Republican Party, which is owned by the banksters, and they take those votes that they get by promising to help people keep their guns, and they betray those people and prevent banksters from being regulated, jailed. Obama has done some fairly amazing things that is never reported in the media run by you-know-who to deal with these people, and tried to throw them all in jail. And when the Republicans took away the Congress with the help of gun owners, the gun owners stuck themselves up the behind in a major way because they didn't like an African-American president. What Obama did try to do was crush Wall Street, and nobody stood behind him. He tried to do it. Obama actually tried to do it. And then he gave up on you. He gave up on you because you gave up on him. Of course, here's the problem, Clay. I didn't know about it. How could you know about it? Nobody'd tell you. And if you show up on TV and try to talk about it, they just call you a socialist. Anyone that would try to restore democracy to the U.S. would be called a socialist. You pretty much understand that. Back years ago, I'll give you this little story here. Are we off the air, by the way?
No, I'm still recording this.
Oh my God, be careful here.
I'm still recording this.
I was working for the government of the UAE at the time, or what you would call the government, since the group of sheikdoms. They have a large hedge fund. By large, we're talking in excess of $1 trillion large, run out of Zurich. And they were buying defense companies, which they have the right to do, and they're an American ally. I was working with General Khalid of the Air Force and the heads of several defense companies, Airbus and others, and a mergers and acquisitions team. And I was in the UK to buy companies in the UK. Now, when you show up as the front man for the largest piece of money in the world, you get treated fairly well. So I was out in Dorset, in Western England, with members of the Queen's household, the head of the SAS, deputy chief of NATO, head of special branch, that kind of people. And I will tell you, I kind of don't belong. Let's be real clear here. I'm a kid who grew up in a house in Detroit the size of my bathroom. You know, I may be educated, but you know, I'm working class Detroit. You know, and anyway, I was taken on a hunt, given a shotgun that cost more than my house, and you know, some guy was standing next to me, serving me tea. Another guy was loading for me. I mean, hunting doesn't work that quick. One day of hunting costs 365,000 pounds, the better part of $1 million for a one-day hunt, for nine guns total. I had a friend at Special Branch, which is Scotland Yard. It's the first time his son had been hunting, and I had a 20 gauge Purdy, which is an expensive gun, and I was teaching his son how to shoot. And I'm an instructor and those things. And his son got to shoot his first pheasant, and I liked that. It was nice. My wife wouldn't go; she stayed in town. Well, for some reason during the day, you know, I was poisoned. My hunting partner was General Sir Michael Rose, Native commander in Bosnia, head of SAS-22. I think he's like a 2-star or whatever. Funny guy, by the way. You'd like to. A guy who went on TV in uniform and told the people of the UK on the BBC that he thought Tony Blair should be arrested for sending British troops into Afghanistan. In uniform, he did this. That kind of guy. Funny guy. You know, in his 70s, quite a handful, SAS guy. But I get home, I'm by 10 o'clock at night, I can't breathe or see, can barely move. I'm dying. And I can't say it wasn't the Mossad that did it. It was someone else. It had to do with a financial deal. And Europeans will poison each other. 4 of the people I work with were poisoned because of a group. It had to do with an aerospace satellite purchase. And they did business with the wrong company. They screwed with the wrong people. And they were going to get rid of all of us. You know, it was a business thing. They considered it business. I managed to stay alive. Couldn't get my wife to wake up. I'm in a Best Western King's Arms Hotel in Dorchester. Nice hotel, by the way. Great staff. Suite on the 2nd floor. And I've got to stare down to the parking lot. I managed to get my wife up at about 5:30 in the morning. Excuse this telephone here.
That's all right.
Mike, I am on live radio. All right. That's Mike here, so it's a competing show.
Oh, okay. I'd like to talk to Mike about his experience.
Mike, easy to get a hold of.
Yeah, I've got him. I got his numbers.
Yep. But Mike's got a lot to talk to you about. You know, we've got things we want to do in Arizona because I think Arizona's ground zero for getting the U.S. back. I want to see the border closed. I want to see the crooked government's gotten rid of. And
we've got somebody in Texas that's working with the sheriff to bring the militia in under the sheriff, and Richard Mack is working to get the constitutional sheriffs going. I certainly would back Richard at any time he's running for office in Texas. At the same time, Biden's son went after the sheriff in the East Coast, on the East Coast.
Well, you know, Sheriff Joe is in Maricopa County.
Yes.
And I tried to talk to the Maricopa County District Attorney. You know, I put in a call there. And I can put a call in there because we have personal close friends in common. And since I've talked to a number of heads of state, certainly, I run a large publication. a very large publication, I would have thought my call would have been returned. When people don't return my call, and I want to discuss issues of drug smuggling and child pornography and whatever, and how they're dealing with it, and they interview someone about that, and they refuse to talk to me. I write the name down, and I remember, just won't say about it, but, mention that anyway. Back to the England trip. I'm in a lot of pain, not feeling good here. I had been poisoned with a shellfish toxin, weaponized, which apparently folks like you and I don't die so easy. Got to a hospital. Now the hospital's got, worn out linoleum floors and whatever. But within a minute and a half of walking in the door, I was face to face with a doctor. They had 2 IVs in my arm, had moderately diagnosed me. I think the idea of that was to kill me or to make me wish I was dead, but, I've been in pain before, I can deal with it. It was enough to make passing a kidney stone seem like a joke. I left the hospital probably, I'm saying 2 hours. It was really about 4 hours later, after lots of tests, lots of treatment, and feeling pretty terrible. And I stopped at the desk, and I took out my platinum card here and tried to pay my bill. And the first thing they told me walking out the door said, healthcare is a human right. What kind of people do you think we are accepting money for healthcare? I'm not even a British citizen. Healthcare is a human right. What kind of people take money from for healthcare?
It's called the AMA.
Yeah? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Obamacare. Well, I will tell you, if I were in the United States, trying to get health care with my varying insurances, I would have been dead. You would have found me sitting dead in an emergency room for 6 hours. In Britain, with their free, terrible health care, in 5 minutes I had a doctor in front of me. 5 minutes. It wasn't 5 minutes. I never sat down. Never. There was no name calling or anything. My God, you look terrible. Let's get you in here. Let's get a doctor.
Now, back to Arizona here. I met with the sheriff over in the next county here, Larry Deaver, and tried to put together some kind of motorcycle run for him. But what my plan was to try to put farmers together and the ranchers together. The ranchers are threatened. Anytime this happened in South Africa, I
talked to these guys down there. The people you were talking about, I talked to. I have a lot of people in Arizona. I got people Fort Huachuca is the head of military surveillance.
Yes.
It sits down on the border in Sierra Vista. All the big defense companies sit around there. So it's kind of a hometown for me.
That's Larry Deaver's sheriff's county, but I
would go through his personnel and clean them up. I know he's got dirty people on his payroll. I know it's your friend, but everybody does, so that's not a big deal.
He's a little bit better than the Sheriff Dupnik here in Tucson.
How do you keep a sheriff's department when you give him 2 choices? Your brains are either going to be on the table, or you take the money in the envelope. How do you run law enforcement under those circumstances? I am told there's not a federal agency I can trust. There isn't, and then of course, everybody wants to get the motorcycle gangs and leave the cartels alone because the cartel will go in and kill everybody's kids. So they want to go after the motorcycle gangs, and the motorcycle gangs, to me, about half of them are veterans. The rest of them are people trying to make a living, and what am I supposed to do? Tell somebody they can have to live under a bridge because they can't make a living in the United States. You can't make a living in the U.S. I have people on staff that work for me for free. We don't pay anybody. You don't have the 8, 9 years of college some of these guys have that are making nothing, that can't get a job, that are over 50 years old, that couldn't get a job working at a McDonald's, who used to make $200,000 a year. I got through the Bush thievery of 2007 with enough money to live. Not the one I had, but I've got a government pension, and I own houses and vacation homes and car payments, and I have no debt, and I have money that they couldn't get. It wasn't in the stock market. So I have more money than I can spend, and I have, I'm doing okay. But it's because I'm a banker. I understand the economic system, and I saw it coming, a pump and dump. I could see that the world was being robbed, and it's going to be again. When homes became valueless, and I own a lot of real estate, and I own nothing on it. I have no mortgages at all. But the worth of my real estate is, I've had one house I've been trying to sell for 7 years, I went to the VA, offered it to them. It's a nice property to set up try to set up a veterans home of some kind. If I get veterans that are living out in the middle of nowhere, I've got housing for 12 people at a horse ranch, and if I can help somehow, and it's just sitting there, I'm paying to have the lawn mowed and run the electricity and fill the propane.
Where's that? Where's that again?
Outside of Lexington. I used to raise horses, long ago. Back when I had kids, and it was, that was the thing to do then, hunter jumpers and, raise dogs, and I'm an animal fanatic, actually, cats, dogs, horses, cattle, stuff like that.
All right, now let me bring you back to Arizona. You'd like to do something. I'd like to see the veterans working with the farmers, and my opinion is if we can grow our own food and generate our own electricity, we don't need the government for much or the banks for much.
Well, we have the technologies. There is a technology called hydrogen boron fusion. It costs about $200,000 to build a unit. It's the size of a basketball. There's a Canadian television show called Continuum, which you don't get on your TV, but if you can, I think you can watch it online. That actually talks about this technology in the future. It exists now. It's being built in Iran and in partnership with Lawrenceville Plasma Physics in New Jersey, working with the Iranians, who are the most advanced physicists in the world. Oh, the Iranians too? Yeah, they do. They have the top scientists in the world in Iran, and the garbage byproduct of dense plasma, hydrogen boron fusion, and that's a copper casing with produces 1.8 billion degrees in the heat of the center of the sun, protected by a tungsten magnetic field. It produces a nasty junk byproduct, electricity. It produces so much of it that this thing you can put in the trunk of your car that you can afford, I can afford to buy anyway, it could power all of Michigan and Ohio. They just opened the Fermi electric plant 10 miles from me, a nuclear plant. Now, I'm lucky I'm still alive.
Now, the magnetic generator, I understand. I mean, this was invented over 100 years ago. It's a working and for sale in Australia, but here it violates national security if you build a
We've got another one. This is classic. This was seen in DARPA. I'm not allowed to talk about this. I'm allowed to talk about some of this. We have a fusion generator. It's a hot fusion rather than cold fusion that produces another waste product. And this would be a heat transfer to electricity, but it's a byproduct. It produces diamonds. You got to beat them up with a hammer. And they would tell you it's funny, the waste. You got basketball a day of diamonds. What are you going to do with those things? But it's how it works. The other one is, remember years ago this thing about cold fusion? Somebody said they created it, and then they said they tested it and they can never get it to work again.
Yeah.
That whole thing was a lie. Cold fusion works. And the guys that said they tested it never tested it. It's duplicatable. You can invest billions in cold fusion. All the big guys are doing it. Warren Buffett sure as heck is. It works. It produces cheap electricity. Not just that. During World War II, the Germans, from someone, or they had scientists, produced an anti-gravity device. It's you could take a can of mercury surrounded by a Limco 5 magnet, like your car speakers. Not high technology, and then put an electric motor in the bottom and stir this thing in a circle, and then set it in the trunk of your car, and your car suddenly weighs about a pound. You could replace your engine with a slot car engine and drive your car. Now, the problem is you go over a hill, we're not sure your car is going to come down again. That's an issue, but it won't weigh a pound. We can negate gravity. We have the facilities, and we've had it for 55 years. The U.S. has been building vehicles. Minimally at first, in 1953, Boeing built the first, and it's the real TB2 test vehicle. 5 passengers, much larger than a 747, powered by the single jet engine from a B-36, painted green. I've examined it. It's a flying wedge, not aerodynamic. It is so old that the rivets are falling out of it. It goes 40 miles an hour as fast as I've seen it go. It weighs 500 tons, and you can move it around like it's a Mylar balloon. It weighs nothing. You can actually put your hand on it and slam it into a wall. And I mean, it's as big as a football stadium. Now, we're talking about this thing in South Korea, and I don't know if you've gone back to the article, but a guy took a movie of a big, it was like a big flying cake dish with a 1 kilometer diameter. I understand that it's built by Lockheed Martin. We have several of these. It was going 300 miles an hour. Now, we examined the movie. We found this thing. We have a picture of a plane crashing into the World Trade Center. It's an iconic movie that people have in their minds. That plane crashing into all those 3-inch thick steel beams, really 9 inches apiece, were a piece of aluminum flying at a speed that it couldn't possibly fly because the plane can't fly at 800 feet at 560 miles an hour. It can only do about 235 because that's all the engine and wings are capable of. And you can't fly an a piece of aluminum. It's like getting a cheese knife. A cheese knife being cut a piece of cheese into a knife and cut through a steel bar with it. It ain't going to work. But when you check that plane using forensic analysis, real forensic analysis, and that costs $250,000. Plane didn't have any temperature, didn't have any metal, it didn't have any mass, and it wasn't moving. Other than that, it was a plane, you know. But I published the classified forensic analysis of a